Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be something a little bit different than what I've done in the past. It is going to be showing how to use Mongo Realm, which was something that I stumbled across kind of two ways. I saw this blog post that Mike did at Ionic, showing how to use Ionic, React, and Realm to build an application. But then also I am currently working on another project, not in Ionic, but in React Native. And in that project, I need to connect to MongoDB in the back end. There's currently an Express API that supports integrating with Mongo in the back end, but I was just trying to test some things pretty quickly, and I just wanted to go straight to the database and read some data and things. And in my hunt for a solution, I ran into MongoDB Realm, and so it just seemed like it was meant to be that I should probably write something up or do a little video about it. I didn't find a lot of content on it at Vue, and since most of you know that I create a lot of Ionic and Vue content, I figured that that's what I would do here. So this is going to be a video, and it's probably going to be a long one, about using ViteJS, Ionic, Vue, Mongo Realm, user authentication, create account, read some data, write some data, and maybe I'll throw in a show you how to use the functions that are provided through Realm. And so that's a good transition to two things. A, please make sure you like and subscribe. Share the video, share my other content if you like it. And B, let's kind of talk about what Realm is, what MongoDB Realm is. The tagline says build better apps faster with edge to cloud sync, fully managed backend services, including trigger functions and GraphQL. The first big thing to note is that when using Ionic, since there currently is not a native plugin to support the MongoDB Realm, you do not get access to sync. So you can't sync to a local data store. Also, in the solution that I'm building, I am not saving any data in a local data store. I'm writing directly to a MongoDB database that I will be creating, and we'll walk through and show you how to get one set up on a free cloud tier that also is provided by MongoDB. So the big thing to remember here is that you do not have the sync. We will be writing from the mobile client directly to the Mongo database. We will have access to triggers, to functions. Also, they have full text search integrated. I don't think I'll get that far, but that's what we're trying to accomplish in this first video. So hopefully you guys find this interesting. Like I said, please make sure you like and subscribe. It will be a long one. You can see down in the description below. I'm going to break it up into chapters so you can just hop to the sections that are important to you. And so let's get to the setup of our Mongo environment. Okay, so now in this video we are going to sign up for MongoDB Realm, and we're going to try to create a project and create a database here. If you've already got your project and database set up, if you're all familiar with this stuff, you can skip to the next section where we start to integrate it with the app. I've done this before for the project, but I'm going to kind of walk through it with you all, and you'll see kind of some places where I might fumble through it that'll help you understand when you try to get it set up yourself. By the way, there is a project setup link, which is here, which kind of walks you through an approach that they use for I think it's a sample React application that they have in the back end. We're going to follow these steps of creating the Atlas account, creating a free cluster. We're not going to install the Realm CLI because we're not doing anything local. We're going to add the programmatic API key, which we need. We're not going to do this CLI to create the backend because we're just going to do it all manually. So these are kind of the steps that we're going to do in this section of the video. And like I said, if you have this set up already, you can just hop to the next section. So let's get this going. Let's see if I can sign up. And I'm going to sign up with Google. And I'll use my personal account. I'm going to accept the terms and submit. What's my goal today? Build a new application. I don't think this really matters much, but let's just fill it out anyway. My preferred language is JavaScript. Let me see if I can zoom this in a bit. Make that clear for everyone. We're going to just start with the free one for now. Free. Let's select our region. I'm in New York, so we'll just kind of, let's close this. We're just going to kind of ride along with everything that you get with the free. Just accept all these options and create my cluster. We're deploying my changes. Let's hop over here to Realm. And we are going to build our own app. And I'm just going to call this application view. It's application view 1. Use my existing data source, which is the cluster that I just created. This is for doing, looks like it's doing for some deployment and other things I'm not touching. Same with advanced configuration, I'm not messing with any of this stuff. I'm certain you can read the documentation and get additional information on it. So let's create my Realm application. We are going to be using the Web SDK. We'll install that in a minute, but let's just close the guide and make sure this gets all done. And it looks like I am set up. Let's go back. So there's my application ID. Let's go back to Atlas. See, is my database set. And they're still deploying the changes. So we got to wait for them to finish deploying the changes. While they're deploying the changes here, let's take a look back at Realm and see what we got. So here's the information on my application. And I can click right in here, and like I said, here's all the guides for setup. We're not going to use any of them. But what we can do while we're in here is we can set up our authentication, which is something we're going to use in our application. So you kind of go over here, and we're going to enable. So let's edit this. We're going to enable email and password. We are going to automatically confirm users. I don't know if I'm going to get the password reset, but since I know I'm not going to do functions yet, I'm not going to select this run password and reset. We're going to send an email to password reset. We're just going to use a simple local host for my application. So I'll just say local host. I believe Vite runs on 3000, so I'll fix that later if it's not, and just reset. So basically what it's saying is that this is the URL that it will redirect the person back to the app on reset of the password. And there's more information here if you click this link. I will just leave this as a message that gets sent, and let's save draft. And I'm using this approach where you save the draft and then you deploy. So I click next just to get through this. And then here it says review to make sure I'm certain. And then now actually deploy the changes. I don't understand any of this deployment language here that's happening, so I'm just going to accept it and trust that it works and deploy. And so now it's deploying changes for my authentication provider. The other thing that we want to do is we want to store some additional information with the user when I save the user, and that's what you do here with this custom user data. What you do is you need to select the cluster and the database. I haven't created my database yet, so let's see if my database is set up yet. Now let's discard these changes and go back. So just so everyone knows what I'm doing right now, I want to have the ability so that after I create a user, I can store additional attributes with the user, and that's what this user custom data is. But it's looking for a database and a collection to associate it with, so I need to go back to my database and make sure that I have a database set up and a place to store it. So let's go back to my databases and see if they're all set up already. So it looks like they're all set up. Let's browse collections. I don't have any, so it should give me an opportunity. So I'm going to add my own data, and now it's looking for a database name. I'll use VueDB1. We'll just call my collection name profile, and we're going to create that. So now in this database, in my profile collection is where I'm going to store the additional data on the user. So now I will use this database and this collection when I go back to configure my user. So now I go back into Realm, and let's open up my application again. And then let's go back to Authentication and Custom User Data. And let's enable it. Select my cluster, select my database, and select my profile. And then this is kind of how they're going to map it. And so what they're going to do is the ID that's associated with the user that gets created, how it'll be mapped to the profile information or this custom data is through this field, user ID. So let's say I create a user and its ID is 1234. The user ID field for its custom user data will be 1234. So let's save this as a draft. Review, draft, and deploy. Deploy. And then there's one last thing you need to do. We need to go over here to rules. We're going to go to our profile. And what we want to do is we're going to select a template here. And what we're going to say is that the user can only read and write their own data. So for this user profile table, no one else can modify or read your profile information other than the existing user. And so let's save this, and the field name is this user ID. And so let's configure this collection, and now it basically says only the owner can do the read and writes on this. And now once again, let's review, draft, and deploy. Deploy. And so it's deploying the change. Now I think that I've done all the things I needed to do. I set up email, password, user auth. I set the change password URL. I enabled the provider. I did the automatic confirm for user. I deployed my changes to apps. I set the more info that I wanted to save. And I think we are good to go. Let's hop back over to our mobile application. To our application, which we haven't really touched on yet. But the point here is, at this point, our project should be set up and good to go. What we will do is we'll probably jump back and forth between some Realm configuration and clearly our database as we work through the app to kind of show how it all fits together. The critical thing here right now for us is that we now have a database deployed that we can have access to and run full Mongo queries on. And then the other thing is that with Realm, we have our application set up, and we will be using a specific app ID to kind of connect everything together. So that's the end of the setup part of the video. Let's start to get to some code and see how we're going to integrate all this stuff together. Okay, now this next section of the video, for those who follow me, I'm going to kind of do what I normally do. I'm going to use Ionic. I think Ionic's an awesome framework. You can use it in Vue, you can use it in React, and you can use it in Angular. When you couple it with Capacitor, you can leverage your web experience to deploy your solution to mobile devices. And so we're going to be using Ionic components. Not going to go too deep in the Ionic components here. I have tons of videos on those, which I'll link to using Ionic with Vue that you can check out. But really just think of it as I'm using, for this specific video, I'm just using the user interface components that are provided. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm using Vite. It's just fast, it's easy to use, and so I've just been really using it for a lot of these type of projects right now. That's also the other awesome thing about Ionic and Capacitor. It can basically work with whatever kind of web tooling that you want to use. So that's great. So now let's get to the app. Let me kind of close this. So what I've done right now is to kind of save us all some time. I have a basic application framework set up, which I'm going to incorporate Realm into. I didn't want to spend a lot of time just putting the basic app together because, like I said, I have some other videos on that, and you can read that other places. So let me, first of all, let's zoom this in, get these fonts a little bit bigger. Let's move this out of the way for now. Right now, this is a basic Vue application. Let's clear this out of the way. This is the basic Vue application. As you can see, I've loaded all of the Ionic related styles, the Ionic Vue specific components and themes. We set up our app as you normally do. You create the app. Here we are adding Ionic Vue. We're adding our router. Let's take a look at what we have in our router. I have set up a couple of basic paths. We have our default path, which redirects to home. We have our home component, which will be the page you'll see after you're logged in. We have a login page and we have a create account page. And then if we go and we look at the views right now, they're all just empty. They're set up with a basic configuration for just the header, but we'll start to add content to each one of these pages as necessary. Also, I've typed up a lot of the code snippets to get the input in all of the fields, and so we'll just drop that in because really the focus here is to show you how to use Mongo and Realm in your application. So let's get started with that. And the first place that we are going to start, I'm not going to focus on protected routes yet. Let's just focus on how to create a user first, and then after we show how to create a user, then we will protect some routes and show how to log in the user to see the actual routes. So let's get started with just pasting some code in. The first thing we want to do is we want to be able to let's give us all some room here. So we want to be here in our login page. So we need to add some UI to get our login going. Other than the Ionic specific stuff, this should be straightforward. We have a label, we have an input field, we're capturing an email address, we're capturing a password, we'll have a function for logging in the user, and then we'll render specific error codes. Actually, let's switch the way we're going to do it. We're going to create the login page first, since that just seems to be easier, and I've already pasted the code in. So let's kind of move forward with the rest of the things that we need to do here. So let's go down into our setup. So we know it's looking for a couple of things. So it's looking for, let's start here, it's looking for a method to log in a user. It's looking for some properties, email, password, and error. Email and password are pretty self-explanatory. Error is going to display any error messages that we get back when we attempt to log in. So let's add the code for these functions. This should be async. And we'll add in the appropriate code that's associated with Realm. And then up at the top, we need some refs to hold our values. So we're going to say email equals ref blank string, copy, email, password, and then error. Okay. And error code. Oh, this last one shouldn't be a string. And since I'm running TypeScript, we're going to run into a couple of these issues here. And so for now, I'm just going to take the bail out and just do an any. And that will resolve those errors. And let's take a look at our UI. We're just going to force us to our login page. And you can see we have our sign in, our create account, and we're really just focused on the sign in for now. So, and actually, let's zoom this in a bit so we all can see what's going on there. This is not going to be much else on these pages. Okay, so now let's start to hop into integrating the Realm SDK. So let's go back over here. Let's take a look at our project, and I got it. So SDKs. So let's look at this install SDK. We are using the Web SDK. And as I stated, it talks about the differences here between the SDKs. And this is for the browser-based applications, which is what we're doing here with using Vite. This interacts with the functions and authentication. It does not, as it says down here, where is it? The Web SDK does not support Realm database sync. Web apps built with Mongo Realm can use GraphQL or the MongoDB query language, meaning you're only talking to the server in the cloud. You're not writing locally. So that's what we're going to do here. Let's hop down to quick start. Let's install the library. We'll go down here. I got my terminal window. Actually, let me open up another one. And we're going to install it. And while that's installing, we need to import Realm. So let's just go over here. Let's import it. Oh, this is wrong. Sorry. Whole leftover code. So we're going to come down into here. We're going to import it. And so that's how we're going to get access to the functions and everything that we need from Realm. And then you have to initialize the app with an app ID. And so let's do that. First part of the video series, I'm not going to be very efficient in the use. I'm not going to create a separate hook to kind of manage the Realm and manage the database calls. So I'm unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I'm going to be just kind of importing this this app all over my application for now. Later on, I'll clean it up. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to my, right at the start of my app, I'm going to go into main TS, and right here at main TS, before I start anything up, I'm going to bring my app in. And let me get that import statement back. We'll put our import statement right here, and we're going to initialize Realm right here, right at the beginning. And as for your app ID is coming from, where is Realm? If I go back to the Realm, this value right here is your app ID. So I'm going to copy this app ID for now. And where is my code? For now, I'm just going to hard code it in here. I'm clearly going to delete this app ID by the time this thing is live, so please don't try and use my app ID. So now my app is initialized, and then what will happen is that inside of my login view, I'm just going to get the app ID when I need it. So I mean the app when I need it. So here I can just say const app equals Realm get app. Calling this function multiple times with the same ID will return the same instance. And so what will happen is that this will allow us to basically get the app instance wherever we need it inside the application. Like I said, I'm not creating a global hook to manage all this. So this is my hacky solution for now. Get app instance. All right, and then everything kind of hangs off the app instance. So we need to log in. And as you can see, I have it set up with my model. So as I enter values in, they'll show up inside of this ref password. And so I'll be able to get the email and password that are required for this login function. And that login function is, so this is how we're going to log in. We're going to use Realm, credentials, email, password. We're going to pass in the email value that we got. We're going to pass in the password value that we got, and then we're going to get some credentials back. And then the credentials that we get back, we're going to wrap this in a try catch block. So if there's any errors, we want to catch them. And then in here is where we're going to actually log in. We should get a user if everything is successful. Otherwise, it'll throw an error, and we're going to catch the error down here at the bottom. And so error failed to log in. And that'll console log the error, but also we're going to pass it back to our reference. And since we're passing it back to our reference, let's get some more room here so we can see what's going on. If you scroll back up and you look at the bottom here, this is where we're displaying error codes and any error information that comes back. So let's give it a go and see if we got this thing working on our first shot. Okay, so let's just put some junk in now and see what happens. So I'm getting my appropriate error messages back. invalid username. I haven't added any users to the system, so my function's doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, so that's the login process. Since we're on a roll and the UI is going in pretty quickly, let's just hop straight to the create account also. And let's see if we can kind of create our account and then log in with that account that we created. So so let's kind of redirect to the root. So here we have our create account button, which is here, and then it redirects us to this create account route. What we'll do is, since a lot of the UI is very similar, we're just adding a couple of more fields. We're just going to copy all of this content that we already have here, and we're going to pop this into our, let's copy this, and we're going to pop this into create account. I started this project off using a Vite slides demo that I did before, so that's why you see slides everywhere. So let's go up here, let's replace this content. Let's show our create account page. So this is our create account page. We know we need to change some things here. So what we're going to do, this will get changed to sign up. This will get changed to cancel. And what we're going to do here is, instead of using router link, we're going to actually do a click. We will get the router the old school way, and then we will go back. So that'll take us back, and then we want to change this. Instead of login, email, and password, we're going to say create account, email, password. Ooh, that's a long one. And then we'll go down and we'll start to add the functions that we know we need to add in this response. And so clearly we need our function, then we need email, password first, because this is the extra data we're going to see with our user, first and last. And let's add our function. So now we have our function set up, and let's put in, we need our refs for our values that we're getting from the page. Let's see, what do we have? Oh, it's still complaining because I need to add these fields, so let's get them. So let's copy these guys over. Let's go to our create account, drop the refs in. We email, password, error. Let's add our first, last. And so those are our values. This is our function. What is it complaining about? We have a red mark. Error. I didn't return error. All right, let's return our error. Okay. And this is create account. So see, we have the sign up and our cancel, but let's add our first name field and our last name field. And we will just, actually we'll put them right at the top. So now let's change these headings. Let's change these down here. This one too, first name, last name. And we're gonna first, last, and let's change this to email type so that we can be a little special there. I'm using this autocomplete new password to make sure that the fields start out empty and clear. And so now we can enter a first name and a last name, and then on sign up we'll call a function to create account. And let's do that. So to create an account, remember, there's a couple extra steps, because not only are we creating the account in Mongo Realm, we're also storing that additional user data. So we have to do this in kind of two different steps. We've already, let's see, no, let's go back to our login, because I need to get my app instance. So let's get my app instance. Bring this over here into create account. And then also let's make sure we bring our import over. So we have our import over. So what do we want to do next? We have to kind of fill out this function, create email account and password. The way that you do that, and also I'll include links to the to the references in the documentation on how all this stuff is done. I'm just going to go straight to and code it up for you. The first thing you need to do is actually create the user. Just remember I said this is a multiple step process. And let's, just to be safe, let's follow the same pattern as before. We're going to wrap this whole thing to try, catch. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to actually create the user. And so we're going to use on the app, there's a method called email and password auth. Register user, you pass in the email and password. You pass in the email and password, and that will actually create the user. Remember, the next step that I said is after you create the user, next thing is we're going to need to update the additional information about the user, and to do that, you need to actually be logged in. So then the next step is we're going to actually log in. And so we are going to do like we did on the login page. We're going to create some credentials using email and password, then we're going to pass it to the login function. Remember, if any errors happen here, we'll catch it down here at the bottom. So let's go back and copy that data over too. Any errors happen, we'll catch them here at the bottom, and then, sorry, this should be ERR. And then they get set on error, and then what'll happen is if you come back up to our UI, you'll see our error messages will show here at the bottom. Okay, why is this? I'm sure we still have our code. Okay, everything's still looking good. So we create the user, then we authenticate the user. And then the last thing that we want to do is we want to save some additional profile information on the user, specifically the first and last name. All right, so save profile information. Also, I'm typing a lot of code without running anything, so let's all have our fingers crossed that this is going to work appropriately. And so to get that to happen, we need to connect to our Mongo database instance. And so here's how you do that. Once again, I will provide links to give you more detail on where I'm actually getting these functions from inside the documentation. So we're going to get our current user that we got back from our app. And then we're going to use that user to get access to the Mongo client. And the client that we want is the MongoDB Atlas. And then once we get the database, the MongoDB, then we're going to use our specific database. The collection that we set up for additional user information is called profile, and now I have access to the collection. And then this is the cool thing. Now we're just making regular Mongo database calls here. So now that I have access to the collection, I can just add the data. Just add the document by doing a normal insert one that you would do in Mongo. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking a user ID that I got from this authentic, sorry, I hate how sometimes this becomes kind of annoying, popping up all the time. So what I'm doing is, once again, I'm getting access to the Mongo database client. Then I'm using that client to get the database, my VueDB1, and then get the collection. And then in the collection, I'm inserting one document. Remember, the way that they stay connected is through this user ID property that we created. And then I'm setting that to the current user. I'm taking the value from first that I'm saving, I'm taking the value from last and I'm saving it, and then I'm inserting this document. And if everything works correctly and I get no errors, then the last thing that I want to do is just go to our home page. And so what I can do is I need my router to get to my home page. So let's import our use router. Let's go up to the top. And we'll get the router. We need to, can I auto import this guy? Yes. So now I get the router, and then if there's no errors, then I'm here, and then we can just say router dot replace, and then we'll just go home. That should send us home. Otherwise, we're going to go down here and deal with our errors. And so let's save this, and let's just kind of wing it and see if we get lucky our first time out. So password must be between 6, 8, and no. Interesting. That's more than, okay, so what am I doing wrong? It looks like I don't think my refs are coming through properly. Let's see. Oh, I didn't import all of the Ionic imports that needed to be imported, so my values aren't coming through. My bad. So I need to do a bunch of Ionic imports for all of those values that I added. So let me just grab all them. So I've added the components. Now I need to actually import them. Let's remove the ones that I'm not using. Buttons twice, so let's remove that. Since I'm here in the create account page, let's update them on login, because I'm certain I missed them on login also. Yeah, I didn't include them, so let's add them here. And then let's add them here on the import. And then let's remove the button. Okay. So let's reload this. That's better, no errors. Okay, now let's try and log Bob wiring again. So Bob, and sign up. And it looks like everything worked fine. Let's not save that. Now let's go to our database. And let's look at our app users. See, so our Bob Wire app user got added now, but the important thing is let's see if our additional data got added. So let's go back to our database and let's look at our collections. And we have profile, and there's our user that got added. So we created our user, we had the additional information associated with the user, and we actually have an account. What we're going to do in the next section is we're going to log in the user, and then we're going to pull back in all of the additional data that was associated to the user. Okay, so now we're back. We just finished up creating a user, and the user's logged in, and we are on the home page, and that's what's happened after we logged in. We redirected to home page. But how do we actually get access to the user session? And where would we do that? So a couple of things. What we want to do is we want to go to our router, because what we want to do is in our routes is if the user is authenticated, we want to take them to the home page. If they're not authenticated, we want to take them to the login page. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to add a hook, a router before each hook onto the bottom. And well, like I said before, I'll just kind of drop in some code and then kind of explain what's going on. So we have this router object here, and then what we want to do is off this router object, we want to be able to run this hook before we kind of redirect. And we need past this to, this from, and the next. One of the first things that we need is we need to get access to our app. So let's go, where do I have it? We'll just, the same process, I need to copy the import. So let's bring the import over. Add that here on the bottom, and then I need my Realm object, and remember, I'm going to do the get app again, because when I do a get app, I'm getting an instance of an existing app. So let's go down here. We're going to copy this code to get the app instance. As I said before, maybe in a later video I'll refactor this to clean it up a bit, but I think I can do it up here. So now I have my app instance, and on my app instance, I can find out if I actually have a current user. So we have a bunch of things that we want to do. And so let's just drop this in also. So inside my routes here, so let's just kind of walk through this. Used to protect routes. All right. So what we're going to do here is, if the path I'm trying to go to is the home path, and if I don't have a current user, then go to the login page. If the full path I'm trying to go to is the login page, and I have a current user, then go to the home page. So what this will do is this will basically protect the home page. So the only way to get to the home page, like you see, is if you have a current user. So let's save this, and you can see right now we're at the home page. And now if I try to go to login, it should redirect me to the home page. Let's see. See, it redirected me to the home page because I have a user, but we can't see the user object. So let's pull some let's pull the user information out, kind of the same way that we are getting this app object here. We get the current user. We can now get the actual information on the current user, and we can just render some of it on the screen. So let's go to our home page. Where's my home? And once again, we're going to follow that same process. Let's go, it's easiest to just go over here. And we're going to come up to the top here, and we'll just take these 2 lines. And let's go to our home page. And we're going to go up here to the top. Let's change this. And we'll get our app instance, and we know we have our app current user. And what we'll do here is, since app is defined up there, do I have access to it? Let's bring it down in here just to be safe. All right. And then what we can do is current user equals ref. Let's make it any to kind of save us some typing, and set it to null. And then what we'll do here is we'll just say current user dot value equals app current user, and we'll return the current user here, which will give me access to the template. And then let's go up to the template, and let's display some of this current user information. And because I saved a bunch of that data in my, remember we saved extra user information, we can display all that extra user information here to confirm that we actually have someone logged in. And where is that? So, and another thing is we want to be able to log out. So what we'll do is we'll drop this code in here, and we'll say if I have a current user, and as you can see, the current user information already popped up here. That's a user ID, and that's the user email address. And what I want to do is here, we have the custom data, right? So let's show the first name and last name too. So let's drop in here, and we can say current user custom data first, custom data last. Okay. And why am I not getting this? Let's refresh this. Let's just check down here on this object that I get back. App dot current user dot custom data dot, I believe that's right. And we're just going to console log this app current user custom data. Okay, and let's see if this will work for me. And it's saying that my current user custom data is empty. There's a call you can use to make it refresh the data, and let's see if we can give that a call and see if that'll address the issue. So let's just copy this whole thing. So we'll come down here. We'll refresh it, and then let's move this to afterwards. Okay, so we want to attempt to refresh the data, and then after the data is refreshed, then assign it. And let's move this into an unmounted. So we'll set all this up when the component gets mounted. Let's set this to async so we can run this, and now let's see if we get any different results. All right, yeah, that's what it is. We just needed to refresh the token. So you can see now that I refreshed it, I'm getting my user information back, and it's being displayed there. So that's what this refresh custom data call will do for you. All right, so let's put this back down to normal size. Let's add some padding around this. Where is this content? Gonna move that out, and then we need to add our logout because this doesn't make sense to test login unless I can actually log out. So let me come down here, and we have, where is it? We have this user logout function needs to be filled out. So let's go down and create our user logout function, const and we're going to need our router because what we want to do is after we log out, we want to redirect back to the login page. So let's say const router, and we're going to do a use router like we did before. And we're going to magically import this guy, and we're going to keep this simple, just doing a wait. If I can type. Then I need to get my logout function, and my logout function goes a little something like this, as they say. It's pretty straightforward. We get our app, our current user, and it is a logout. And let's clean some of this up because it's going to complain. I think I could just Elvis my way out of this. So that does that. And so now I have my logout function. But I did say after this happens, we want to actually use our router.replace, and send them back to login. Okay? So let's see if we get this to work. So I'm logged in. Let's refresh this. Let's make sure I'm passing my user logout. And let's just check again because I saw some errors that were popping up. I'm sure there's no errors here. Well, that seems to be addressed now. Alright, so I'm good with my errors. Just back to the side. And let's try to log out now. So let's try this again. And that was, I already forgot my username. I think it was Bob Wire at mail.com. Oh, I didn't set my redirect on login, so let's go do that. So let's go back to my login. See here I did, if my login was successful, we need to do router replace home. And let's add our import for our router. And so now on successful login, we'll just go home. Let's get this out of here. Let's see if we can log in again. bobwire.com, bobwire.mail.com, and then password. Let's try, this should be at mail. Okay, so now Bob Wire is logged in. Why is my logout not working? Let's see if we're throwing any errors here. But I bet if I it's interesting. See, the route has changed, but the page hasn't changed. That's interesting. Uncaught error, cannot read custom data without access token. Oh, I know what's happening. So what's happening is now I've logged out, and so there's no more user, but it's still trying to render this information up here. So let's put some Elvis on here. And I think actually also what it is where's my console custom data? Let's get rid of that guy because we don't need that anymore. Okay. Let's refresh everything. Let's log in Bob again. Sign in. Let's see. Oh, I know what's going on. I'm not setting my current user to null. So after I log out here, I need to set my current user. So the logout will clear out the app current user, but I'm using my current user, which I assigned, and I need to null that out. So now let's refresh everything. Let's log in Bob Wire, password. Bob Wire's logged in. Bob Wire's logged out. So that's what it was. Okay, so we did the login, we did the logout, and then the last thing that we need to do is address the session. So like watch, when I log in as Bob Wire again, Bob, and I sign in. So now Bob's signed in. If I refresh this, let's go back. And I do a hard, that should empty the cache and refresh my page. And you see how it's redirecting back into my login page? Well, that's because if I look at my indexed TS inside my router, what I'm saying is that if you're trying to go to the login page and I have a current user, then just take to the home page. That's because Realm is keeping track of my user session, and it's kind of reconstituting it, for lack of a better word, and bringing me back to the home page. And so I think that as a wrap, that's kind of what we wanted to cover in this kind of first video. It's been kind of long. I think it's almost an hour of content. What we'll do in the next video is we will use more of the Mongo queries to save data to the database and retrieve data from the database, and maybe we'll also integrate a Realm function so you can see how you can leverage the backend to have serverless functions using Mongo Realm. Hopefully you found this helpful. Please make sure you like and subscribe, share the video with your friends or someone else you think might be interested in it, and take care. Bye now.